This is Anthony Nunez, and for today's educational video, I'm going to be talking to you about property appraisals. So, as you know, the process is you agree upon an accepted price with the seller, so the buyer and seller agree on a price. Then the next step, the buyer goes out and conducts a home inspection. Then the contracts are fully executed. Once the contracts are fully executed, the buyer will then talk to his bank to get started on the appraisal. They'll pay for an appraisal. So, what is an appraisal? So, as seen over here, an appraisal is an unbiased professional opinion of a property's value, right? So, you're getting some third party to go in, view the property, and give it a value, okay? The purpose of an appraisal is to protect, one, the buyer, right? You don't want the buyer to get screwed over and get sold a house that's way over what it's really valued for. And more importantly to the bank, the one that's giving out the loan, the bank wants to make sure that whatever the sale price is going to be, that they also have a good, accurate property value price, just in case, if the buyer ever forecloses, the bank wants to feel reassured in its loan. So, what are some factors to consider, or what are some factors that are considered in the appraisal? So, the day of the appraisal is going to come in already knowing some information, okay? The appraiser is going to come in because they're going to be looking at the deed. They're going to look at the deed for whatever property it is. They're going to just want to verify the lot size, the square footage of the house. They're going to want to know all those things up front, okay? The appraisal has nothing to do with whatever estimate you're seeing online, right? Trulia, Zillow, they give estimates, other companies give estimates. That has nothing to do with the appraisal. Those estimates they're nothing. They mean nothing to this process. They just throw those numbers out there and they're not always accurate, okay? The appraiser is going to look at the deed to get accurate square footage for the house and for the lot. They're going to look at recent sales. Most appraisers are going to have some access to MLS, right? Or they're going to look at the public records, and they're going to look at what are the recent sales, right? These comparables are going to give the appraiser a good idea of what this house with this square footage and this lot should sell for, okay? And then lastly, they're going to look at possible adjustments. So, if another comparable property or comp sold, but that other comp sold pretty low because it was right next to the airport, literally it's the house right next to it, so planes are flying above it all the time, maybe it sold for a little less for that reason. Or let's say a property is in the flood zone, right? And we know that they have to pay more in insurance, and thus the property value it sold for a little less than one outside of that flood insurance landmark. Then they're going to make the adjustments for those properly if they're a good appraiser, okay? So what's the goal of this appraisal? The goal, if you're in a deal where you have a fully executed contract, the goal is going to be for the appraisal to come at or above the contract price. Doesn't matter if it goes $20,000 above, right? Like if you're the seller, you're not trying to renegotiate for that other $20,000 or $10,000, right? As long as it's at or above, it just means that it meets the specifications for the bank. The bank can feel assured in its loan that it's giving to the buyer, okay? Now, where do we see issues? If it does not come in at or above the contract price, then that's where people get creative, because let's say if the property is listed for $500,000, which is the going rate around the area I work in, if it goes for $475 or $490, then the buyer and the seller have to come back to the table with the real estate professionals and talk over how they're going to possibly do some type of a concession where maybe the buyer is coming out of pocket $5,000 in this process, aside from what he's taken out in the loan. Or maybe the seller is going to have to just agree to whatever the appraisal price came in at, because the buyer won't be able to get the loan unless it meets the appraisal price. So if it comes in at $490, quite possibly the seller will have to renegotiate the price to $490, or the buyer may have to come out some pocket if the seller is being reluctant. Many times the seller is looking to sell this property and buy another one, so that might be in play too, because you don't know if the seller needs the money or if the seller has a deal that they don't want to lose. So that plays a role in this process as well. In addition to the regular buyer-seller portion for the appraisal, you also get appraisals done when people want to refinance. So why do people refinance? You might refinance if you've been paying PMI, right? You've been paying PMI for a while, and you run the numbers, and you and the mortgage professional realize that if you refinance and the house hits certain thresholds, then they can remove the PMI from your loan, right? You get a new loan. You refinance your deal. Or another option that I see people refinancing for is for small investors. So some small investors have up to 5 loans, and what they'll do is they might refinance a property to pull money out to buy another one. Or you might see someone who's thinking about relocating, refinance some of the cash to buy a second property to relocate and rent out theirs. There's a variety of reasons why people refinance, but in most cases it's because they need the money or there's a good interest rate there. It's usually a money play. Lastly, the appraisal is an unbiased professional opinion of the value of a property. So if for some reason you don't agree, you can try to do what's called a reconsideration of value. Good luck with that. Not many of them go through, but you can try, right? You can look at the appraisal and the comps, right? They'll list it. So in the form, they'll list the properties that it was comped with, and you can say, well, listen, 1 or 2 of these properties don't work. This was a foreclosure. If you go into the property, right, there was no kitchen. I don't know. These foreclosures, they could have anything on them, but you can ask them to relook at the comps to see if for some reason there was something they didn't account for, or if you have, let's say, a view of the city. So in New York, you might have a view of the city that the other properties didn't have, and that may be a reason for an adjustment. All right? So I hope that this video answered any questions you have about property appraisals, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more updates. I'll see you soon.